For our deep dive segment, I'm chatting with news editor Derrick Perkins, who earlier this month covered the trial of 37-year-old Jonathan Shaw, who was found guilty of deliberate homicide in the 2021 shooting death of a gym employee outside Fuel Fitness in Kalispell. The verdict followed a 4-day trial in Flathead County District Court, where the 12-person panel also found Shaw guilty of attempted deliberate homicide for shooting and wounding a gym patron who engaged him in a gun battle in the parking lot. Prosecutors allege that Shaw shot Fuel Fitness manager Matthew Hurley dead after Hurley tried to refund his gym membership and dislodge him from the parking lot where Shaw was living in a trailer. Matt Underhill, the gym's assistant manager, had accompanied Hurley into the parking lot and testified earlier in the week that a menacing Shaw followed them back towards the gym before declaring his intent to kill and opening fire. Another gym patron, William Keck, engaged Shaw in a gunfight shortly after Underhill fled. Both men were wounded in the exchange, which led to the attempted deliberate homicide charge. Jurors began deliberating just after 3 p.m. on July 13th and returned to Judge Dan Wilson, who presided over the case, with a verdict at about 7:41 p.m. Wilson set sentencing for September 21st. Derrick is our news editor here at the Interlake. He covers crime in courts. Earlier this month, he was in Flathead County District Court covering the end of the Fuel Fitness Center shooting trial. I wanted to go over a few aspects of that trial and take a peek into how you cover stuff like this. So this case against Jonathan Shaw took 2 years to go to trial. Why did it take so long, and why in general does it take a while for cases like these to go to trial?
Sure. There can be a lot of reasons why someone gets charged, then 2 or 3 years might pass before they go to trial. General rule of thumb, it seems like the more serious cases take longer to go to trial. That would be your murders or your rapes. That's not consistent or across the board, but generally. But even for some of the smaller crimes we cover, and I use smaller loosely, assaults or thefts or burglaries, they can take a long time. Someone might skip bail. There could be a change in attorneys. They might be running things through the crime lab. There can be a lot of hearings that lead up to the court case, or the court trial, rather. Those sorts of things tend to delay it. The big concern usually I've seen on the judge's side of things is to make sure that the defendant knows that they have a right to a speedy trial, and if they're okay with waiving that for whatever reason, then it can be continued, which is not to say it's continued indefinitely, but you can see cases drag out that way. With Shaw in particular, as I recall, and I came into this case a little bit midstream. I think the shooting happened when I was still up in Libby. I came down last spring, and my first interaction with the proceedings in the courthouse were, as I recall, regarding mental health evaluations on the defendant. I think there was also a change in attorney somewhere in there. So those sorts of things can push off a case quite far.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of information coming your way when you cover trials like these. And we also have to be sensitive when covering it, right? So what do you keep in mind when you are watching these cases unfold in court?
Sure. Well, the first part, and this is something I think is very hard for folks to not understand, but they don't necessarily know it. When a crime or an alleged crime happens, there is what is generally referred to as charging documents that are filed by the county attorney's office. And those are they usually happen within a few days of the crime, not always, but usually. They're written off of the police reports and early evidence gathered, and they're very one-sided. This is the county attorney's office saying, this thing happened, this crime was committed, and we believe that this person did it, and here are some of the reasons why. So when the charging documents end up in the courthouse, they usually lay out the basic facts of the case. A crime has been committed or allegedly committed. Someone is under suspicion of committing that crime. Here are the reasons for why the county attorney's office thinks they've committed that crime. And again, it's very one-sided. The defendant has no say in it. If you, Taylor, were charged with a crime tomorrow, the document I would see in the next day or two would just be all the reasons why we think you committed that, or the state thinks you committed that crime. So that is typically our first story when a crime breaks, is written off of those charging documents. The defendant's side of the story won't really come out until the trial, sometimes earlier if they file motions to see it dismissed, or evidentiary motions to get things tossed out, or kept from coming up during the court proceedings. So that's where it starts. And from there, you have an omnibus hearing, which is just sort of a conference or deadline that the judges have with the attorneys. Usually the defendant does not appear for these things. And then a few weeks to a few months afterwards is a pretrial conference. And then there'll usually be a status hearing in a short window after that, and then it would go to trial.